Did you know that many women over 60 would never admit to this? It is that masturbation affects not only the body, but also the brain. Moreover, it does so in ways that almost no one would expect. I am not talking about fantasies or temporary relaxation, but about actual measurable effects on neural pathways, blood circulation, and even hormone production. Many of my patients are surprised to learn that their brains are just as active during self-pleasure as they are during intense exercise or meditation. A 68-year-old woman reported that after a long period of being asexual, she experienced self-satisfaction for the first time in a while and subsequently slept well for several days. This is no coincidence. Stimuli cause the brain to release hormones such as dopamine, which promotes motivation, and serotonin, which brings inner calm. At the same time, levels of the stress hormone cortisol also decrease. This means that your brain is literally stepping out of anxiety mode and returning to a balanced state. However, this is just the beginning. Neurobiological research indicates that masturbation in older women promotes blood flow in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. This may explain why many women feel more energetic, have clearer thinking, and become more creative after doing this. Another effect: oxytocin levels increase. This is often called the bonding hormone. It makes you feel safe and warm even when you are lonely. Many women describe this state as an inner embrace. This is evidence that even after the age of 60, sexual desire is not just physical, but can also be a form of emotional healing. So I tell my patients, if you think masturbation is meaningless, you are underestimating the power of your brain. This is an invitation to clarity, calmness, and new vitality. Many women ask me, at my age, can my brain still respond like this? The answer is clearly yes. Even after menopause, the nervous system remains highly sensitive to stimulation. What changes is not the ability to feel pleasure, but the strength of the response. In other words, your brain can release dopamine just like when you were 30, and sometimes even more strongly. This is because it reacts more intensely to rare stimuli. The 70-year-old patient said to me after the examination, "Not only do I feel relaxed after self-satisfaction, but I also feel more energized. It's as if someone switched a button." There is scientific evidence for this sensation. According to research, orgasm promotes blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, activating areas responsible for concentration, decision-making, and emotional control. Therefore, this is not just a moment of relaxation, but also a form of brain training. However, please note, many women may make mistakes by comparing their reactions to previous ones or to others' stories. They often say with a tone of disappointment, "I can't reach orgasm as quickly as I used to." However, this is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity, because a slower response allows for a more conscious experience of the process. The longer the time, the more opportunities there are to send positive signals to the brain. Did you know that after the age of 60, self-satisfaction can sometimes promote the formation of new nerve cells in the hippocampus? This phenomenon is called neurogenesis. It shows that pleasure not only evokes memories, but can also create new connections in the brain. My advice is not to think of masturbation as a compromise or substitute. Instead, see it as an invitation to keep the brain young, flexible, and lively at any age. Another interesting aspect is its impact on stress. Many women over 60 report feeling a deep sense of relief after self-pleasure. It's a more profound sensation than after a walk or tea. Why is that? During orgasm, the brain releases a large amount of endorphins. These natural painkillers act as a shield against tension, headaches, and even joint pain. A 66-year-old woman smilingly said, "After a little rest, I sleep like a baby and wake up pain-free." The impact on memory is particularly interesting. According to research, sexual arousal enhances synaptic plasticity, meaning it improves the brain's ability to receive and remember new information. One patient said that after an intense experience, she finally felt motivated to read a book she hadn't been able to touch for years. "It was as if my brain had awakened anew," she said with a smile. Of course, what must not be forgotten here is that the brain responds sensitively to signals when given specific amounts of time. Rushing causes stress rather than joy. People who give themselves room to breathe bring beneficial waves of activity to the brain. Therefore, I tell my patients, Each careful interaction is more than just a physical stimulus. It is nourishment for your brain, an invitation to clarity, strength, and inner calm. Many women believe that by their 60s or 70s, their brains no longer respond as quickly as before. However, neurobiology shows otherwise. Our nervous system maintains plasticity deep into old age. This process is called neuroplasticity, and self-satisfaction can actively promote it. Every time you experience a pleasant sensation, billions of neurons are simultaneously activated, forming new connections and strengthening existing ones. This is like training, but not for muscles, it's for synapses. The 72-year-old patient told me that after many years of asexuality, they gradually began to touch themselves. At first, everything felt unfamiliar and almost numb. But after a few weeks, I started to feel lively, and suddenly I felt more energetic. This experience can be explained as follows. Repetitive sexual stimulation increases blood flow to the brain and accelerates signal transmission. As a result, we become more sensitive to pleasure and also gain increased focus and clarity in daily life. Another point that many people underestimate is that self-satisfaction helps regulate the autonomic nervous system. This leads to more harmonious heart rate, breathing, and digestion. Women point out that after conscious masturbation, their heart rate decreases, stomach issues lessen, and they generally feel more relaxed. The brain switches from stress mode, sympathetic nervous system, to rest mode, parasympathetic nervous system. There is also an impact on pain perception. During pleasure, the brain releases endorphins, which act like natural painkillers. As a result, many women experience a reduced frequency of migraines or relief from chronic back pain. Self-satisfaction is not just a personal pleasure. It is a neurological training that can tighten the brain, reduce the burden on organs, make you feel alive again at any age, and restore clarity. Many of my patients ask, but doesn't frequent masturbation worsen the brain? This concern is understandable, because many women derive their knowledge from myths and old taboos. The truth is, there is no scientific evidence that masturbation harms the brain. On the contrary, regular sexual stimulation is like a kind of training for the brain. It promotes blood circulation, helps generate hormones, and indirectly strengthens the immune system through stress regulation. A 70-year-old woman said she sleeps better and can concentrate more in the morning after masturbation. She said, "I used to lie awake for hours, thinking about my problems. Today, it's much easier to switch my brain off." From a neurobiological perspective, this can be explained by the fact that after orgasm, the level of a hormone called prolactin rises. This triggers a sort of rest phase in the brain. At the same time, the level of the stress hormone cortisol decreases. However, there are also mistakes that can have the opposite effect. People who masturbate while feeling pressure or guilt are training their brains to respond to stress, and instead of relaxing, they start feeling stressed. Our limbic system, which is at the center of our emotions, remembers this connection and reacts with anxiety the next time. Therefore, it is very important to consciously accept your emotions without guilt. What is particularly interesting is that neurologists have proven that masturbation activates the so-called prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision-making, attention, and self-control. In other words, you are training your brain not for confusion, but for clarity and focus. My advice is to let go of old guilt. Please remember this process positively in your mind. That way, all moments of joy will become moments of healing for your heart and soul. Many women are surprised to learn that masturbation affects the brain similarly to meditation. During stimulation, activity in the default mode network, which governs fantasies and internal images, increases. At the same time, activity in areas involved with anxiety and thoughts decreases. The result? A clear mind and often hours of inner peace. A 67-year-old patient told me, "After self-satisfaction, I not only relax, but also feel almost reborn. It's as if someone has tidied up my mind." This effect is related to the balance of serotonin and dopamine. The brain experiences a kind of reset. Tension eases, motivation increases. This is exactly what many women at this age need: feeling lightness in everyday life. Another point I often explain to patients is that masturbation promotes the production of oxytocin. This hormone is also called the bonding hormone, but it also acts against fear. It strengthens trust and deepens confidence not only in others, but also in oneself. Many women report that after such moments, feelings of loneliness decrease and they feel less alone. Their brains feel and retain intimacy, warmth, and safety. Of course, the effects are maximized when you're not in a hurry. Rushing actually activates the brain's stress response. By consciously relaxing, you can teach your nervous system to combine calmness and joy. Therefore, my advice is to consider masturbation as a small meditation for the brain. It is a moment when worries calm down, you feel alive, think clearly, and are in harmony with yourself. Many women over 60 are surprised when I explain that regular masturbation can help maintain youthful brain function. How? Very simple. Every time you feel desire, new neural connections are formed. The brain enjoys stimulation, not only crossword puzzles and reading, but also sensory experiences. This activation can help enhance memory, concentration, and even problem-solving skills. The 71-year-old patient told me that after years of sexual restraint, she began to pay attention to herself again. A few months later, she noticed that her mind was clearer and her ability to remember names had improved again. Of course, this is not a substitute for medical treatment for serious memory problems, but it demonstrates how closely the body and mind are connected. The scientifically proven fact is that orgasms promote blood circulation in the brain. This flow of oxygen and nutrients is like a small shower for nerve cells. Imagine your brain being thoroughly ventilated. You will feel more energized and lively. This is especially valuable for the elderly because blood circulation tends to deteriorate with age. But it's not just a cellular issue. Mood also changes. Women who regularly indulge in self-pleasure report fewer depressive thoughts and feel more joy in life. This is related to the production of endorphins, known as happiness hormones. These act like natural painkillers and help you get through daily worries more easily. So, my advice is clear. Do not fear using this source of mental energy. There is nothing to be ashamed of in doing good for yourself. On the contrary, your brain will reward you with clarity, energy, and a good mood. Many women ask me, but isn't it dangerous at my age? In fact, it's the opposite. The greatest risk is not the act itself, but the myths created around it. When we shame or suppress our desires, our bodies produce stress hormones like cortisol. In the long run, this can harm the heart, blood pressure, and even the brain. Conversely, regular masturbation significantly lowers cortisol levels. This means reduced internal tension, better sleep, and a calm heart rate. There is another interesting aspect regarding the hormones dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine promotes motivation and learning ability, while serotonin maintains calmness and balance. Many medications prescribed to the elderly act on these substances. However, your body has a natural source without side effects: pleasure. It is entirely possible to release these substances within minutes and strengthen the brain. I remember a 68-year-old patient. She said, "Since I learned not to blame myself and started taking time for myself regularly, I have rediscovered the joy of playing the piano." Her brain responded with new creative energy because emotional blocks had been removed. Joy is not only physical, but also liberates the mind. However, it is important to be consciously gentle with yourself. Do not push yourself too hard or compare yourself to the past. Listen to the signals your body sends. Every woman is unique, and the ways of self-care vary. Most importantly, allow yourself to use this resource without guilt. A new relationship is formed, practicing self-care instead of rejecting something. The brain blossoms when the body and mind are in harmony. And this might be the key to aging, not just for health, but also for the joy of life. When wondering why the brain reacts so strongly, one should focus on biology. At the moment we feel desire, various regions of the brain work together. The limbic system, which governs emotions, the prefrontal cortex, which manages decision-making, and the pleasure center, which provides motivation. This activation works like small fireworks, igniting millions of synapses and creating new connections. This plasticity is crucial for us to maintain mental flexibility even as we age. One of my patients, a 72-year-old woman, was afraid of declining memory. She became more attentive to herself, and after a few months, she reported that it became easier to remember names and dates. This is not because masturbation is a miraculous cure, but because her overall stress level decreased, and her brain entered a state of renewed learnability. This demonstrates that small rituals can have a significant effect. Blood circulation also plays an important role. Any form of sexual arousal causes blood vessels to dilate, providing more oxygen to the brain. This is similar to walking or light exercise. It is not a replacement, but a helpful complement. And above all, it brings pleasure. Of course, there are limitations. If you experience pain, bleeding, or sudden health issues, be sure to consult a doctor. However, the vast majority of women benefit from this path. Never forget, your body belongs to you at any age. Paying attention to yourself causes the brain to respond positively. It is simply a form of self-love. Shame turns into strength, and fear transforms into clarity. Your brain will thank you with calmness, joy in life, and renewed energy. Many women I work with quietly ask me at the end of our consultation, "Why didn't anyone tell me this sooner?" This question shows how strongly taboos influence our lives. For a long time after turning 60, sexual desire remained silent, as if it didn't exist. However, silence is the greatest harm. In fact, there is no biological reason for desire or tenderness to disappear. Your brain remains sensitive to pleasure, and nerve endings are trainable if you allow them to stay active. According to scientific research, regular sexual activity, including self-pleasure, is associated with better sleep quality, more stable emotional states, and even a delay in cognitive decline. This is because dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin act as natural medicines. They lower blood pressure, promote a sense of satisfaction, and protect against depression. What is the best part? They are free, available anytime, and have no side effects. However, it is important to listen to your body. Imagine a small nightly ritual, a glass of water, a few deep breaths, a moment for yourself. No stress or obligations, only you and your body, which has served and cared for you for decades. These moments are not sins or shame, but acts of self-care. They are just as important as healthy eating and exercise. This is an invitation from me. Cast aside shame, listen to your body's signals, and allow yourself to be filled with joy, intimacy, and warmth. This is true prevention, not only from illness, but also from forgetfulness, rigidity, and inner loneliness. If you want to receive more honest and important information like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll stay updated on the latest news, and your body and mind will thank you.